What's up everyone, Alex aka Soldier First Class here, and today we're going to be doing a video that I'm excited to make because this is my top 10 reasons to be excited for Final Fantasy XVI. Now trust me, there are way more than 10 reasons to be excited for this game, but these are just my top 10. Let me know your top 10 reasons to be excited for this game in the comments section below. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you like the video, and I'll see you at the end of the video. Bye. How's this for a reason? You can pet the fucking dog! That's right, ladies and gentlemen. You can pet Torgal in Final Fantasy XVI. Now, that's not the only reason to be excited for Torgal. He's actually a very capable companion in battle, which you can actually give him commands, which is pretty great. But you can pet that little guy, which is awesome. Not only can you pet Torgal, though, you can also give him a treat. On top of that, Torgal also acts as a guide for the next part of your quest. So, definitely hand out all the treats for the bestest boy that you can. Now, that's not to say that he'll be around permanently. I just really hope that one of the inspirations for Final Fantasy XVI was not JoJo's Bizarre Adventures dogs, because, well, we all know how that works out. Now, another big reason I'm excited is the soundtrack. I don't know if you've ever experienced Final Fantasy XIV, I'm sure a lot of you have, and witnessed the brilliance of Masayoshi Soken, but if you have not done that yet, you are in for a treat. This dude does nothing but produce absolute bangers, and every track has meaning. In Final Fantasy XIV, a lot of the tracks have a lot of lore based to them, so like the lyrics are all based in the situation happening or what has led up to that situation. And I don't see there being much difference here in Final Fantasy XVI. Some of the tracks, like the newest prelude, the Stillwind encampment place, like the town there, all of this music is purposeful. It all has meaning. It all just has this feeling, this atmosphere, and that's what I love about Soken's work, is that it's always, every instrument, every sound, every tone, every little piece of musical atmosphere in his games has a purpose, or it's supposed to evoke this emotion. And Shadowbringers and Endwalker have top tier soundtracks, like probably two of the best soundtracks maybe ever in gaming, and our boy is working on Final Fantasy XVI, so for that I'm extremely excited. So for me, this is probably the biggest one, and that's story. The reason why is because I have always felt that while gameplay is important, if I am not hooked into your story, there's no amount of gameplay that's going to get me to push through that. Like, it has to have a story that keeps me engaged and keeps me going. I love Final Fantasy Tactics, and this game feels like an Ivalice game in everything but name. And that's a lot of why I'm excited, because I've been waiting ever since I finished Tactics when I was younger for that raw, gritty, well, Game of Thrones style Final Fantasy that I've always wanted. And I always thought that a modern take on something that Matsuno would write was going to be a dream game for me, and it turns out that Final Fantasy XVI might be that game. Kazutoyo Mihiro is an excellent writer, an excellent game designer, and I personally think that he is doing a fantastic job already. I mean, we've had a 2-hour demo, and I'm hooked. I can't stop thinking about the game, I can't stop thinking about the story, how it's going to play out, how certain mysteries will unfold. Like, I am hooked. And so for Mihiro to come out here with a 2-hour demo and absolutely blow me away like this, the guy worked on 12, Tactics, Vagrant Story, and 14, he worked on Heaven's Ward. This guy knows storytelling because he was under one of the best that Square has ever had for storytelling, and that's Yasumi Matsuno. And for me to have this modern style, Ivalice style, medieval story to sink my teeth into has me unbelievably hyped for what Final Fantasy XVI can be and likely will be. So for that, I have to thank the whole dev team for creating this wonderful experience so far. So one of the things that I'm really excited for is the fact that Final Fantasy XVI went to full-on action combat. Now I know that has been kind of a sore spot for some people in the fan base, but I'm here to tell you, it works. It really fits this atmosphere that the game has going on. It's flashy, it's visceral, there's jump cancels and parrying and dodge timing, and you can combine normal attacks with magic attacks, and you can switch your icons on the fly, and all these different mechanics that just work. So when I was playing the demo, I really felt like I'm going to test this and say, oh, well, I'm going to just button mash and see how that works out for me. Turns out not so great. The problem with it is that this game is not a button masher, and I know there's some detractors out there that will say, oh, it's just hit square to win, and that is not the case at all. There's a lot of timing, there is a lot of, you need to be able to perfect your dodge timing. I mean, the combat is very forgiving, but not in like a too easy kind of way, but I feel like people are going to walk into this thinking this is Final Fantasy XV, and that's not the case at all. This is not a hit circle or square to win the game. This is something you're going to have to think about when you play, so just keep that in mind. And if you don't know who he is, Ryota Suzuki is the combat director. He worked on Devil May Cry 5, Marvel vs. Capcom 2, and he also worked on Dragon's Dogma, where he designed the combat for that as well. And I have to say, I feel like it plays more like Dragon's Dogma, which I love, more than it does Devil May Cry. I think aesthetically, it is Devil May Cry, but when it comes down to actual mechanics, I would say this is more close to a Dragon's Dogma of action games. And I have to say, the combat looks amazing. They showed off some gameplay at the pre-launch celebration where it was them against an S-rank hunt, and it was incredible to watch. So I'm excited to get my hands on it, to be able to buy new abilities in the menu system, to be able to put together gap closers and chains and combos and see just how crazy everybody out there gets. These combo mad videos are insane, and I can't wait to see all of these videos online here in the next couple weeks. One thing that I'm super excited for, and it's not something that I thought I would be until recently, and that's the extra difficulty settings that you unlock after you complete the game. I believe it's Final Fantasy and Ultimaniac mode. Now, those are going to be harder difficulties than the base game, and I'm actually really excited for those, because I just recently marathoned the Soulsborne games from Demon Souls to Elden Ring, and also just completed Jedi Survivor on Grandmaster difficulty. So, over the last 2 years, I've found that I really love the challenge of games, as opposed to just beating them and getting through them. And so, whenever I find a game that hits me like this, and makes me think that if I play on a higher difficulty, I'm going to struggle, I'm going to love that combat system more, because I have to sit there and actually think about what I'm doing. And I've found that over the last 2 years, I have gravitated more towards games like that than I have when I can just breeze through a game. And what's great is we actually know now what is going to be in those difficulty settings, because Hiroshi Takai and Ryota Suzuki actually just showed off a showcase of sorts of what Final Fantasy mode will actually entail. So they do show a clip of pre-Final Fantasy mode, and that's just the base game, and that's where you fight a certain enemy in a certain location, and that's how the base game is. Well, in Final Fantasy mode, you will actually go back to these places in your New Game Plus with all of the abilities that you had from the previous playthrough, and you'll fight harder enemies with higher levels and just different locations. So, when there's a scene they show where you're on like a walkway, and you're going towards a crystal, and there's a bunch of soldiers. Well, originally there'll be like a big axe-wielding guy, but in the new Final Fantasy mode, there'll be an Iron Giant that's higher level. So even though you have your higher combat abilities, the difficulty is actually going to be tuned up, and I'm really, really excited for this, because this is going to breathe new life into a new playthrough, besides just replaying the story. And this is something that I wish more games would do, and I cannot wait to sink my teeth into this. Now this next one might be pretty obvious and something that everybody's looking forward to, but for me, the icon battles are going to be amazing. I absolutely love like old Godzilla movies. My dad and I used to watch them. My friend Corey and I have watched them together. Like, I absolutely love kaiju battles, and this is exactly what I would picture in video game form for kaiju battles. So, I'm really excited for it for multiple reasons. One, because it does bring back some memories of watching movies with my dad and my friends and stuff. But it also, I love summons. Summons has always been one of my favorite parts of Final Fantasy. And so, like, Final Fantasy X is one of my favorites. And it's a lot of the reason is because you get that control of those summons, those Aeons. So for you to be able to play as an icon in Final Fantasy XVI is like a dream come true for me. So that's a major reason why I'm excited for this game. This is probably going to be one that's very like niche and very specific, but for me, the active time lore system and the 1,000 tomes at Cid's Hideaway are a big feature that I'm excited for. I'm a huge lore nerd. I don't know if you've ever seen any of my 14 lore videos or my like 14 theory videos or even any of my theory videos in general, but I absolutely love lore and backstory and learning about characters and locations and why the landscape is the way it is. Like, I love learning that stuff. So for me, I own both Encyclopedia Eorzeas for Final Fantasy XIV. So clearly I'm a fucking nerd, but I just want this to be a feature that I can go into and absolutely just go hog wild. And so for me, this feature is one that I'm extremely excited for, and I hope you are too. So I think this next thing that I'm excited for isn't necessarily about the game itself. It's more so what the game might bring in the future. And that is that this franchise has not been looked at in the greatest light in the last probably 15, 20 years. We don't get a Final Fantasy every couple years like we used to because development times are just way too long. There's a way too much of an involved process, and it's impossible to be able to do that anymore. And so whenever you get a title in the franchise that does not live up to the reputation that the franchise has brought, it tends to put a bad stain on the franchise until a new one comes out and possibly blows people away. Unfortunately, with 13, a lot of people didn't like it. They didn't really like the incoming sequels for it. Then they didn't really care for 15 because it was a lot of promises that really didn't get fulfilled, I guess. And even Yoshi P has commented on this, saying that 15 made a lot of promises that it didn't keep. So, for me, I think what I am most excited for in this aspect is that this game might actually bring us back to the golden era of the PS1 days, where every game felt like an absolute just a joy to play. Now, a lot of people don't like 8. I do. I love 8. But 8 was one of the fastest selling games in the franchise of all time. So there is some merit that people do like 8, whether they admit it or not. But since around 10 to 12, people have had this idea that Final Fantasy has just completely gone downhill. Now, I don't agree with that 100%. I do agree that I didn't like 13, and I did like 15, but I had my issues with it. But 14 is an amazing masterpiece of a game, and I absolutely love it. And I think that CBU3, who also handles 14 and 16, have been the team that are trying to lead the charge into the next generation of Final Fantasy. So for me, I am not necessarily just excited for the game. I'm excited for what the future of this franchise can be and what this game will mean to that future. We touched on this topic a little bit ago, but one feature that I'm really excited for is the hunt board. Final Fantasy XII is one of my favorite games of all time, and the Evil East series itself is one of my favorites. But what really stuck out to me in Final Fantasy XII was the hunt board system. And I thought it was really cool. There was one that I specifically remember where you went into the mountains, and it was this snowy area, and there was this white chocobo, and the white chocobo could like disappear on you and stuff. So I really am excited to see what hunts they come up with. Like, it kind of looks like they might just be like, go here, kill a bunch of ads, 14 talk, go and kill a bunch of ads, and then the boss shows up. And that's cool and everything. I do hope that there are some different parameters to the hunts. But overall, I'm really excited for the hunt system and what big marks that we're going to take down. So one last thing that I'm excited for is Final Fantasy XVI side quests. Now, Mayhiro has already kind of commented on it and said that when they were writing the side quest, they were writing it with the world's history in mind, and that you're not going to get every single detail from the main story, which would be impossible, but you're going to get the nitty-gritty lore and backstory details of the land from the people that live in it. And I think that's great. I really hope that it's done well. I believe it will be, but sometimes side quests, like, you get that promise of, oh, this side quest is going to be great, and then the only thing it does is, like, it's just this weird arbitrary reward that doesn't do anything, or you just feel disrespected with your time. So I'm really hoping that Mayhiro and the team have done a really good job with the side quests, and that we're going to get some awesome stuff, because it appears that we already are with the rest of the game, so I can't imagine that the side quest would be any different. Overall, between the story, the lore, the music, the gameplay, the hunts, all of it, I'm so excited for this game, it's not even funny, man. Like, I wish I could put into words how excited I am. When I made a video about 4 years ago about how this team had left Heavensward and were moving on to work on Final Fantasy XVI, there were some people that didn't believe that, or didn't think that this new project was Final Fantasy XVI, and this whole time I've been holding out hope that it was, because I knew that the people behind it were the right people for the job. I just don't think anybody else realized who Hiroshi Takai was, who worked on Last Remnant. I don't think anybody realized who Kazutoyo Mayhiro is, because they all worked on kind of obscure titles, but if you had played those titles, you would understand how good they really were. So I'm glad that this team has been put together the way it has been, and that everybody that's working on this has a love for this style of game. So overall, that's what I'm excited for. Let me know in the comment section what you guys are excited for. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you liked this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Later, guys.